Peter J. Daniels. Peter J. Daniels is a rags-to-riches multimillionaire. He came from a disadvantaged background, and his early years were plagued by illiteracy and ignorance. Yet, he built a large business in real estate in Australia with Southeast Asian connections, and has served on international boards covering the four corners of the earth. He is a world-recognized authority on leadership, personal development, and goal setting. Peter Daniels is a strong Christian, an accomplished speaker, and a lover of excellence. He has found workable answers to the meaning and purpose of life. He is personally wealthy, has a no-debt philosophy, and readily adjusts to any situation. He is an international author of Substance and Quantity, and one of the world's most highly paid strategic planners and public speakers. At times, people have flown or travelled up to 1,500 miles by road to hear him speak. Many corporations seek him out to launch new products or speak at their annual conventions, while politicians, pastors, bankers and universities call on him for counsel. For more than a decade, as the president and founder of the World Center for Entrepreneurial Studies, Peter Daniels has been touching the lives of millions of people.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise up to your feet and give a great...
Let's give an IGOC welcome to Peter J. Daniels. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please be seated. As we contemplate the present world scene, we must gasp at the growth in areas of technological achievement, in genetic engineering, in microchips and robotics. In observation, we must ask the question in respect to the 21st century, is that all that the future has to offer? Or we can scan the world scene in areas of energy, contemplating the advances in producing oil from coal, liquid electricity, fusion, power from the tides in our great oceans.
This message comes to you from the International Gathering of Champions 2003, a KICC conference's annual event hosted by Pastor Matthew Ashimolowo. The conference theme is No More Limits, and it is our sincere prayer that as you listen to this message, you will be challenged and equipped to shake off the shackles of limitations and soar to new levels.
In our future? No. Then with major breakthroughs in thought technology, we can use Baroque music to reduce our alpha waves in conjunction with space breathing, and we can quadruple our memory. Then, of course, with role-playing and imagination intensity to program our minds and develop capacity and strengthen our resolve and control stress. We've already developed advances in brain implant microchips to program the human cortex. Is this our growth factor for the 21st century? I don't believe it is. Then we have these new gurus called futurologists, with predictions on market trends, population shifts, growth areas and financial collapses, shortages, political upheavals, the reshaping of world power, pollution, diversity, the fate of common man, and the hopelessness of it all. Are we to go into the 21st century with grey clouds, uncertain resolves, and limitations of choice? Of course we won't. Because our success, our wealth, and our safety does not come from technology, or from our mineral abundance, or from our production lines and our factories, our manipulation of markets, the vast forests or oceans, or with the political system, science, mathematics, or military might. So you pose the question, where can I find the key to the 21st century? It is where it has always been. It awaits on the threshold of every moment, ready for the action thrust of the individual and collective human spirit given to us by the hand of God. You can make the difference. You can change the world in your lifetime. Thomas Jefferson said, "There is a natural aristocracy among men, and the basis for it is virtue and talent." But is that valid into the 21st century, as world events seem to disturb the smooth workings of corporate machines and the threatening to overwhelm us? I want to suggest to each one of you this evening that are participating in this economics summit that you are well positioned with plans, policies and timings to champion the cause in this new century, and in the process to participate in a jet stream of growth and change, and if it pleases Almighty God, to lead such a parade. You see, the engine of the free enterprise system that has served us so well in the past is slowing down, and we must not wait until it breaks down irreversibly before we hit God's accelerator. You are the unique individuals who can make the measurable difference in the world that has lost its way. You are the carriers of dreams. You are the empire builders of tomorrow. And as we look at the world today against the backdrop of history, we glimpse at the past when change was not normal, when travel was only for the privileged, and the communication was by the speed of the horse to the wings of a pigeon. The world is very different now, and we have a world for the taking. We can champion the cause of economic freedom, and dare I say that the human factor is our only restraint. I believe that we who are fortunate enough to be alive at this time in history may witness a new business era that could transform the entire free enterprise system with a renaissance of values that emphasizes people rather than products, individuality rather than collectivism, and with the true respect and recompense for the God-given dreams, potentials, and efforts to all those who put forth their own personal effort. But we must understand clearly, and we must never lose sight of the fact that all business includes money, and all helps and services are paid for by someone with money. And if there are those in our community who refuse to pay their share, that it means someone else has paid it for them. And if the person making the payment has not received the practical benefit, then someone else has received something what they have not earned. And I believe there is no honor in an arrangement like that. And the torch of freedom under such an arraignment will flicker low and may one day extinguish. You see, the values that we've held in our democracies for many years are changing dramatically. The interesting thing is that these changes have been made largely without the consultation or agreement with the general populace to which the change has been pressed upon. Although with the advent of penicillin, space medicine and other medical advances, and the introduction of the microwave and many other household appliances and helps, together with computers and robotics in the workplace, there has been behind it all, in the homes and hearts of many people, a sense of loss, as the values of protection, respect, and the lifestyle of the family unit and the individual appears to be constantly under assault, with a fear that the worst is yet to come. Or we have learned how to travel to outer space and reach the moon and the stars, and yet have failed to send a message of hope across a gossamer curtain. You see, the fears that abound in our democracies are well founded, as uncertainty continues to increase with downsizing, and increasing taxation is unable to fill the economic black hole made by inefficient policies and decisions. Is there any wonder that the older generation are deeply concerned for the future of our young people, while apprehensively contemplating a bleak, impoverished outlook towards our own twilight years? It is obvious to us all that we are desperately in need of a renaissance of values that will provide the necessities of life and remove the uncertainties of fear and give us hope for the future. But what if you've tried? What if you've gone into business? What if you've tried to pick yourself up and you've failed, and you've got up and you've tried again and again and again and again? What's holding you back? Wherever I go around the world, people say to me, is there one common denominator in the Christian church? Is there one thing that stands out more than anything else in the whole of Christendom throughout the world? Yes, fear. Fear. And what are we frightened of? We're frightened of change. We're terrified of change. There was an unusual impact of change for a Russian cosmonaut called Sergei Krikalev on New Year's Eve in 1992 as the great bells of Moscow rang out to signal the end of communism and the feared Soviet Union and the beginning of the new Commonwealth of Independent States. Because Sergei Krikalev had blasted off 7 months earlier from the famous Baikonur Cosmodrome as a prestigious card-carrying member of the Communist Party, with the initials USSR on his helmet, and his spacecraft proudly bore the hammer and sickle as a national symbol. Sergei Krikalev returned on that New Year's Eve of 1992 with a non-existing country, and the communist card that he carried was now illegal. He experienced the challenge of change. And we think that change is something unique. What we're going through today feels uncomfortable, and we feel that it's never happened before. But change is not new. The shift that took place with Aristotle as the fountainhead of wisdom, Johann Gutenberg's printing press, Martin Luther's Reformation, the Renaissance in Florence and Venice, the adoption of the Arabic numerals in the West, James Watt's steam engine, the Industrial Revolution, communism, capitalism, World War I and II, change is and will always be part of the human events. The difference today is that change can be, and indeed must be, swift to survive, but it also must be wise to sustain. And we here must be prepared to accept change if we are going to grow into this, the new century. You see, the major economic and political changes in the world today are similar to that of a kaleidoscope, where all the parts are the same, but as the sphere turns, so totally new patterns emerge as the passions and the patterns of the past take on new forms and create, as we believe, will be spirited models of genius or catastrophe so gigantic that it's hardly conceivable to the human mind. My Christian friends, we are once again at that pivotal point of a new dimension in our world. The biggest contest in the history of the world has already commenced. It is a contest for the world markets. The main players will be Japan, Germany, and the United States of America. Or the United States will call the meeting, but Japan and Germany set the agenda. The Cold War has finished. A cold peace has begun. You'll see it on your television screens, you'll read it in your newspapers, you'll hear it through your politicians, you'll feel it through your taxation. It is inescapable, incalculable, indiscriminate. The winners will be few, the losers will be many, and this economic battle will last for at least 20 years, and it will also set the balance of power for many years to come, and it could make the possibility of individual growth stagnant, and it may even lower the standard of living in the Western world. The desperate need at this crucial hour in our history is entrepreneurial vision and leadership. But before many of us can change, we must do what we all avoid, and that is to look at things differently. Before changing their beliefs, most human beings will spend long periods of time pretending that the facts that conflict with their long-held theories do not exist, and hoping that somehow such magical facts will just go away. As we meet here at this place together, this could be a promising moment in history. And with a bold, imaginative plan, we could weave together the sturdy threads of hope to a hurting and a lost world. But there is a long, hard road ahead as we unite under the goodness and providence of God to provide hope and direction where it's needed most and point the way clearly ahead. You see, the Christian church must take its rightful place in world affairs as a guide to the nations, as a seasoning to the people, as a lead in economics, and as a light to morality. Well, what if you've tried? What if you've tried a dozen times? You've tried to do something, you've fallen on your face, everything that you touch goes wrong. What if you keep on trying and you get up and you get up and nothing seems to work? What do you do when your dreams start to fail? You reach for one more dream. We should never give up, let up, or shut up until God takes us up. And the first thing to do when all your dreams are fallen in a heap is discover your second wind. You know, Francis James was probably the most famous behavioral scientist of the 20th century. He said, mankind has a second wind, a third wind, a fourth wind. Just a few weeks ago, my wife and I were in the United States and we went into a J.C. Penney store. I said, my wife, don't you realize that J.C. Penney came out of a lunatic asylum at 56 years of age before he started the J.C. Penney stores? Just an hour ago, I was talking to my son in Australia. My second son, Graham. He's quite a famous horseman. He's a taekwondo expert. Some say that he has one of the 10 best brains in the world on global economics. But he's quite a character. He wanted to learn bulldogging. Can you imagine at 44 years of age wanting to learn bulldogging? He found an old cowboy. And the cowboy said he would teach him bulldogging as long as my son kept him supplied with chewing tobacco. Having met his demands, my son met with the cowboy. He would come out of the chute on that horse. He would roll off and land on that horse, that cow or the steer, and grab his horns and finish up in the dust. He would try again and again and again, and finally he turned to the old cowboy. He said, what do you do when you grab the beast by the horns and you give it everything you got and you can't get the confounded thing on the ground? What do you do then? The old cowboy spat out his tobacco. He said, you give it a little bit more. You see, we need the resilience to rise again and again from defeat. You've got to discover your second wind. Secondly, you've got to repair your broken principles. Whenever you've fallen in a heap, when everything collapses around you, you've broken a principle. George Bernard Shaw says it's easy, terribly easy, to shake a man's faith in himself, to take advantage of that, to break a man's spirit. That is the devil's work. I think the psalmist says it even better. It says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Proverbs takes it a step even further again. It says, greater is he that can rule his own spirit than he that can take a city. Well, there are 4 laws to create a right spirit, and the first one is truth. You see, truth is the first casualty in every conflict. Truth feeds the soul. It stimulates the intellect. It directs the imagination. Marcus Aurelius says, truth conquers everything. Winston Churchill said the truth is incontrovertible. He said panic may resent it, ignorance may deride it, malice may distort it, but there it is. The failure to absorb the quality of truth is the cause of all broken relationships. Truth is the foundation of all good judgment. Truth is the basis of all moral law. And if you want to create a right spirit, then the first thing you've got to do is come to grips with truth. The second thing is, you have to look at that 4-letter word called love. You know, in my Bible, in Corinthians, it says, love never fails. In our church, there was a man having problems with another man, and the pastor said to him, oh, just love him. Just love him. He phoned up after 2 weeks. He said, it's not working. The pastor said, double the dose. Double the dose. And Galatians says the Spirit is love. And you know, one of the hardest things to come to grips with is acceptance of yourself, that God loves us. People say to me, what is the hardest problem? What is the biggest problem you've ever had in your life? I said, I face it every morning when I have a shave. I see that idiot looking back at me. And you have to accept yourself and challenge yourself against this boredom, this terrible, hopeless, draining, paralyzing boredom that bedevils the human species. And the next step in love is to accept others. Or we will not accept our pleasure at the price of someone else's suffering. And then create a passion to be a catalyst for hope to a hurting and a misguided world. The third part of building a right spirit is power. You see, the power to absorb. What is your intelligence absorption quotient? The power to dream. Without spirit there is no dream, and there's nothing so pathetic as a dispossessed spirit. And then, of course, the power to perform. At home the other day, I was a little bit grumpy. And my wife said to me, she said, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Well, I'm unproductive at the moment. Productivity is inseparably tied to purity." She said, "Oh, for goodness sake, do something then." Well, I went out and I chopped wood for 4 hours. When I came back, she said, "Are you still grumpy?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, what's the matter now?" "I still feel unproductive." So I went for a long run. When I came back, she said, "Are you still grumpy?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Why?" I said, "At 71 years of age, why aren't I puffing?" But we need the power to dream. Without spirit, there is no dream, and there's nothing so pathetic as a dispossessed spirit. And then, of course, the power to perform. How long do you wish to exist in the basement of your life? Do you have an urgency factor? And then the power to discipline, to do your best and to beat it. And the fourth part of building a right spirit is commitment. Or Tennyson in Ulysses in 1842 said, "The grey spirit yearning in desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star beyond the utmost bound of human thought." Mahatma Gandhi said, "Every act has its spiritual, economic and social implication. The spirit is not separate. It can never be." The great Napoleon Bonaparte said, "In this world there are two forces, the sword and the spirit, but the spirit has always conquered the sword." Yes, you need to renew your spirit. Once you've done that, you need to develop a decisive plan. You know, wherever I have been around the world, and the people I've met, and some of the greats of the 20th century, when they're about to finish their life, I ask them this question: have you got any regrets? These people that have built empires in the 20th century, they may use different words, but they always say to me, "Yes, if I'd known God was going to take me this far, I'd have gone further. I never thought big enough." So why don't you action one target, one single target for victory? On Monday night, I'm going to talk to you about goal setting. Give you the science of goal setting, how to set goals for your entire life and hit them on target. We fiddle around with 4-year goals, 10-year goals, 15-year goals, you see, and we lose the motivation. We have proven scientifically that even a person at 60, 70, and even 80 years of age, if they set a long-term goal and they put their heart, their spirit, and their mind in it, it will actually reprogram their body clock. I made some comments this morning about creating a mission statement. You see, a mission is the ethics and the mechanics of the journey. The goal is the end result. I heard the pastor make the comment that I've read 6,500 biographies. Well, it's a great deal more than that. But that was the last time I counted, about 2.5 years ago. But you need to create a mission statement. A mission statement can be described as a written statement of purpose and behavioral boundaries worthy of a life's pursuit. A mission statement is a style of pursuit. A mission statement sets a pattern of behavior that exhibits the character of an organization or a person. A mission statement creates a relationship culture of a person or an organization. A mission statement is a secure anchor in the stormy seas of life. Do you know? Do you fully know what you want to achieve? You see, knowing what you want to achieve, knowing what you're going to transfer your life for is 75% of its fulfillment, because most people are raring to go, but they can't go for raring. Can you give an impact reason why? Why will it impact? How can it impact? Where will it impact? When will it impact? How long will the impact last? Will the impact totally satisfy me? You know, I hear Christians saying, God's not interested in numbers, but he wrote a book called Numbers. See, are there any limiting factors? What personal and material tools do you need to get the job done in education, skills, positioning, influence, and finance? Do you see any exit points? How big do you want it in measurable terms? Are there some time petitions of crucial importance? What specific payments are you prepared to make in time, talent, and treasure? And will it satisfy your inner yearnings? And at what time will it terminate without your continued input? Do you live your life by adopting priority economics? Are you alert to exit options? You see, dreams without plans are mere fantasy. And can you see the full picture? And then, of course, you have to renew, refresh, and reinvigorate and rediscover your discipline quotient. I lost 2 of my friends because of the lack of discipline. They just would not be disciplined. They kept falling into all sorts of problems time and time again. Both of them committed suicide. You see, a weak willpower destroys your honesty factor. It destroys your self-esteem. It destroys your relationships. You must have a bigger reason to do than not to do. We're talking here about life's trading table. Willpower is freedom within boundaries. That was the 4th one. Now, fifthly, gird yourself for the long haul. Not very long ago, I saw in the newspapers in Australia where we live a book called 1 Foot in the Grave. The man that wrote it was a man that gave me my first job and called me down from the building scaffolding and just said to me, Daniels, he said, I've got this job as a sales manager for a building supply company and I need someone to tell me what builders want. Would you like the job? If you tell me what they want, I think I'll be able to do the rest, and in the meantime, I'll teach you how to sell. He was an unusual man. He had a great deal of ability, but he had an artificial leg. And I remember when he first taught me to sell, he took me into a builder's shed, and here was this builder working in the shed, and he was trying to get this man's attention because he said, Daniels, the first thing you've got to do when you sell is get their attention. And he couldn't get this man's attention. Finally, he lifted up his artificial leg and put it on a stool and took a 3-inch nail and started to drive it in. He got the man's attention immediately. But David was a deep-sea diver in his spare time. And he went down and got the bell from the battleship Houston and presented it to the city of Houston. He wrote a book called 1 Foot in the Grave. I read the book. I called him. He said, Peter Daniels, he said, I haven't seen you for 35 years. He said, I see you in the newspapers. I see you on television. He said, you look different. You sound different. I gave you your first job. I said, that's right. I said, I'd like to take you out to lunch. I read your book. He said, well, I'm very busy. I said, well, I'm paying. He said, well, I guess I'm coming. We met together, and as we talked to one another, I asked him what was the greatest thing that had happened in the last 30 years, and he told me about going down and getting the bell off the battleship Houston that was sunk and giving it to the city of Houston and getting the key to the city. I said, well, that's wonderful. And he kept looking at me quizzically and said, you've changed so dramatically. He said, remember, he said, you were a rebellious young man. Remember, he said that you could not articulate words. He said, I feel somewhat embarrassed in your presence. I said, well, you no need to. We went out onto the street and he said, I have to make a phone call. I said, well, I own the office next door. Would you like to come into the building? He looked at it and came in. He walked in my office and saw 70 feet of wall with honors from floor to ceiling. He said, I could never imagine that's that skinny kid that could not articulate words, that wasn't able to read and write properly, that he could do something like this. And people look at you and think exactly the same. They see you as you are now, but they have no idea how far you can go. IQ tests only tell you where you are. They don't tell you how far you can go. Gird yourself for the long haul. Are you measuring your progress regularly? Are your mistakes repetitive? Are your work habits inconsistent? Have you routined your necessities? And then 6, create checkpoints that are realistic. You may have to expand your mind. Renita Bose was probably the greatest behavioral scientist of the 20th century in futurology, that is, predicting the future. And he said, man has an incredible capacity to adjust downward. And what happens when things get a little rough? You adjust downward, you tighten your belt, you try to withdraw in. But you see, we're Bible-believing Christians. We have faith. We press again, and we push the boundaries out. You see, you must never accept defeat. Your darkest hour may precede your brightest hopes. Motivation always comes with a sense of the future. And you need a realistic understanding of your position and your capacity. How much of yourself are you prepared to give? What is the size of your dreams? Yes, discover your second wind. Repair your broken spirits. Develop a decisive plan. Renew, refresh, reinvigorate, and rediscover your discipline quotient. Gird yourself for the long haul. Create checkpoints that are realistic and never accept defeat. Why? Because what is defeat is but a stepping stone to victory. What is failure is but a progression towards success. What is respite is but a rest between battles. What is poverty is but a springboard to riches. But efforts, goals, disciplines, dreams, faith, and character, that, my friends, is the essence of champions. And that's what we're talking about here at this conference, champions, people that want to do their best and to beat it. And I trust as we spend this time together, as we're able to expand our mind and think of possibilities of what we can do in the future, that we'll see a different church when we come back, if we ever came back in 12 months' time. I want to see how many... I want to see how many Rolls Royces are going to be parked out here. I want to see how many millionaires are going to be created in this congregation. Now, my wife has given me a little lesson during the mealtime. She said, you haven't told everyone about destiny of the third millennium. They're still asking questions. Please, I don't want to have to repeat myself too many times. They've even put it here for me to go over it again. I don't want to go over it again. I don't want you to spend money you cannot afford. This is for people who want to do something significant. It has everything I've ever learned in my lifetime, every formula I've ever created. Anyone that gets involved with it is locked into the World Center of Entrepreneurial Studies for the rest of their life. Which means, of course, if you have a business problem, you can contact our office and we will use our research team to get you out of that problem free of charge for the rest of your life. Now let me wind up. Life is not a dress rehearsal in a kaleidoscope parade. It is time and guts and thinking. It is honor, love, and praise. Or life is not a dress rehearsal that fools and jesters crave. It is helping, serving, winning. It is paths to better ways. Or life is not a dress rehearsal, it is opportunity and chance. It is maker of the man regardless of circumstance. Life is not a dress rehearsal, so keep your stars in sight. It's God's good gift to all of you. It is for you to keep it right. Or life is not a dress rehearsal, so take care and make this sure. It's time to throw away excuses, props, and paint. It's time to show them what you are, not what they think you ain't. Life is not a dress rehearsal. It is success within your grasp. And it's your destiny you're dealing with, and the sands of time move fast. Life is not a dress rehearsal. Never compromise the thought. It's overcoming, so keep on running. Your dreams are now in sight, and it's at the mountaintop you'll find the performance of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, may God expand your life until your destiny is fulfilled. God bless you.
Thank you, Jesus. Wherever you are, please stand up. Everyone standing, no one moving, no one leaving. This is very important. I want you to hold hands with the person next to you. Hold hands with the person next to you. About 5 months ago or 6, the Lord spoke to me that this conference this year was to focus on the theme, no more limits. Majority of us.
We hope you have been blessed by this message. You can request additional conference products, find out more about KICC, or request information on services and events by calling us on 020-8525-0000, or you can send a fax to 020-8525-0002 or an email to admin@kicc.org.uk. Remain blessed and highly favored, and remember, it's not over until God says it's over.
Circumstances. Due to my circumstances. I've explained several times to them in KICC